media covers your story will be built from the ground up. King, dominate. He's the one, the only, motherfucker Jason Lee.
Welcome back to an all-new episode of the Jason Lee Show. Now, my next guest is somebody who's out here not only fighting in these streets for her district, but she's fighting for the whole nation. Please welcome Congresswoman, legislator, and activist, Sydney Kamlager-Dove. So it can't just be like a dove. It's the Kamlager-Dove, because that's a long last name.
It's a long ass name, yes. And I'm deal with the peoples. So Kamlager is my birth name, okay. And then I got married to a very sexy man and decided to add the Dove. So it's a lot. A lot of people say SKD before AOC, and then some people just say KD. Some people just say Sydney. Some people say a lot of other things. Or
they have to put some respect in their name and call you Congresswoman.
That's always good.
You know, it's funny because, I'm the vice mayor of Stockton. I went to this event.
Woo-woo.
I went to this event a couple weeks ago, and this lady walked up to me and she goes, Vice Mayor Lee. I said, yes. She goes, do I have to call you, do I have to refer to you as vice mayor? And I said, you? Yes.
Yes.
And she was shocked. And I said it to her because I earned that. You earned Congresswoman, but this person in particular, she didn't support me in the beginning, so she absolutely has to call me vice mayor. When can people call you Sydney, and when do they have to call you Congresswoman?
So obviously in my house, please call me Sydney, right? In my real house. When I am doing public professional work, please call me Congresswoman, because to your point, I have earned it. Mm-hmm. And what I notice is people will give the title to the man, and then the Black woman, more often than any other woman, I think, they just get real familiar. And I'm like, okay, it's all good, we friends, but I have earned the title, and it's also about respect. So the question is, why do you decide that I don't deserve the respect that you're going to afford somebody else?
What I love about you, and let me put some respect on the Congresswoman's name, and I'm not one to hide from my own transgressions. You had reached out to me when you were running, and somebody had connected us, I think, Prophet, about supporting you. And I was so busy and so in my own shit that I didn't free up time to support. So I don't want to be one of those fake people that come later now that you're the Congresswoman. But I have to apologize because I think it's going to be very important as we talk through just all of what's going on in the country, how present we have to be in the world right now and what's happening, and those who are fighting on our behalf, because it is not easy. And earning what you've been able to earn over the years is not just the titles, but it's the public's trust to fight for them, is a big deal. So I want to apologize for being one of those apathetic, uninvolved, too busy people who didn't get involved when I should have.
Okay, well, since you said it, I will accept your apology, and I'm going to give you grace because you are doing big things and you are slaying dragons, not just in the legislative political arena, being vice mayor of Stockton. And it is hard to be part of the governing structure that's running a city, okay? Mm-hmm. But also building a brand, building a cultural entertainment empire in this city is equally tough and important. Mm-hmm. So I give you grace, brother.
Well, no, you've always been gracious, but I said when I saw you at the BET Awards not too long ago on the red carpet with Mayor Bass, and I was like, I'm gonna save that for the show, because I now see it all. I'm in it all, obviously not just as vice mayor, but as somebody who's Black in America, gay in America, and I just thank you for your service. So you earned the title. When do you check somebody in real time, and how do you check them when they say Sydney and not Congresswoman?
Well, I check people a lot because people act up a lot. They act up in the committee hearings. They act up in the meetings, So in my office, it's all Black. It's Blackly Black. We've got Frederick Douglass. We've got Shirley Chisholm. We've got Black photographers and their work, my family. And I notice when people come in, they do like a gut check and they're like, oh, okay, this is for real. Like, I can't come half-assed. I got to come correct with her. And so, you'll see it depending on how close I sit to you, that's a check. Mm-hmm. Depending on how long I shake your hand, that's a check. Depending on how long I let you talk, that's a check. And then sometimes when people come up and they're like, Sydney, sometimes people touch you, you say, okay.
Everybody wants to hug, right?
Yeah.
What is that?
I don't don't know what that is, but I have to tell people, like, I'm a real person.
Yes.
I'm a real ass person with
real
some
boundaries.
Queen.
People have no boundaries.
Yeah.
Somebody tried to hand me their child. I said,
No.
You don't even know me to hand me this kid.
I could have cooties. You could have cooties. The baby could be nasty.
Yeah.
Like, it's a no. Right. Like, right. So that happens quite a bit. I've had situations where we've had a meeting and my own colleagues will give deference to the white legislator. This happened when I first came to Congress. And then people were like, oh, you? And I was like, oh yeah, I got elected too, probably by a larger margin than that person. I've had situations where during our orientation, for example, a member of Congress got on the bus, because you get on the bus and you do your orientation meetings. And I happened to be sitting next to Congressman Jonathan Jackson. And the dude got up and was like, oh, it's so nice that they let spouses come.
No, they did not.
And that dude is not elected anymore. I helped him get the boot. But I was like, no, I got elected. And last I checked, actually, they're still counting your votes. So we kind of check people in all different ways.
But you know, the reason why I bring that up is because when I got in it as vice mayor, and this will all make sense for those of you watching, because everybody has a job where they are seen or treated less than, or there's these microaggressions to put you in the box they think you fit in. I got in, and at first I was very much like, oh, they just try me because I'm new into this, or they're just trying me because they see me as the entertainment guy, or because I paid my own money for my election. You know, but then as I've gotten in it, you use the word deference. I was literally told by the mayor's staff, you need to fall in deference to her until you do. And I said, well, deference and democracy for me ain't the same thing.
Right.
That ain't how this is going to go.
Right.
And when I look at you and I look at Congresswoman Crockett, who I love, Mayor Bass, when I look at AOC and Ilhan, I mean, like, there's a new type of representation happening. Are people struggling with us that are outspoken?
I think so, because people are not used to us being unapologetic, right? I am unapologetically Black. I am unapologetically female and unapologetically vocal about the communities that I care about. And I have done my homework on the issues, and I'm going to speak to them. And I just don't think people are used to seeing that. You know, I talked to Mayor Bass quite a bit, and we have talked a lot about this issue. And I said, you know, I think people are still struggling with seeing Black women as executives, like of their own brand, of their own selves. I think we've given folks some grace in the corporate arena and maybe even in the entertainment arena, but in other spaces, people are just not used to that, seeing that kind of Black female authority. And so they do see you as the Black woman, the one responsible for like putting all of the pieces together and doing all of the work, but they don't also equate that with giving you the respect. Mm-hmm. And so we all have some work to do for folks to understand that evolution, because we certainly walk in and I give people respect. If you've earned it, I give it to you. But now if you mess with me, we're gonna have some problems.
And so you've had a career. So you were in public service. I mean, let's go back to the fact that you are a congresswoman in LA, Los Angeles, and worked in Hollywood as an assistant to Del Lindo. I didn't know that you were in entertainment before.
Yes.
Did you have a passion for that always, or was that just a job along the way?
So I come from an artistic community. My dad was a producer way back in the day. He produced jazz concerts in Chicago. My mom has always been an actress, and we lived in New York for a little bit. She worked at the Studio Museum in Harlem. My stepdad is a painter. So
he ain't just no painter.
Okay.
Come on now. See, this is what Black folks, we gonna stop being humble. We can pop our collar over here. And when you selling art over $20 million, first of all, I can't sell nothing over $20. $20 million, that's an artiste. He was an artiste.
Okay, yes, he's an artiste. So I've grown up with art in my veins, but I've also grown up with activism in my veins. I'm a product of a biracial or interracial marriage, and my parents were denied housing because my dad's white, my mom was Black. You know, so I sort of have like always grown up understanding what it means to stand up for yourself. And then in the art that comes out, the activism, the educating, all that. So I came here to go to school, never left because of a whole bunch of things, including the weather. I went to work at a nonprofit arts organization. And then Delroy, we've known for a very long time, since when I was really little. He came, he was like, hey, I'm doing some movies. I need an assistant. And I was like, okay, what about me? Mm-hmm. And he's like, do you know what it means to be an assistant? You're going to be doing some bad stuff. Like, do you want to be picking up laundry? And I was like, I want to try my hand in this industry. I want to make enough money that I can give it away and be philanthropic and help my community that way, rather than fighting by writing grants.
So your passion for transforming communities happened way back then.
Way.
People think that, like, for me, like, how did you go into this? I mean, I was in the union for 11 years, and I worked in education and law enforcement and probation. So it's an evolution. It's not something you just, for those who are really in it in transforming communities, it's not something you just decide, okay, I'm just going to go over here and do that.
No, you're doing it, it's iterative. You're doing it in different stages of your life, but you're still doing it. You're still speaking out, right? You're still like taking a stand. You're still like
Trump just wanted to steal. We're going to get to him.
We're going to get to him. There has to be something up in here when we start talking about him.
Don't you just feel an immediate need for therapy when you just hear the name?
I do, but then so many things come to my mind.
Save it.
Save it.
So you're what? So when they
Delroy.
Yeah, Delroy. So you're there. You're the assistant. So now you're in the mix of all of the things that are all the things.
So I'm in the mix. We're doing the show, these movies. Not a lot of Black people behind the scenes or in front of the camera. Working like a dog, like 20 hours a day, super tired, understanding that I had a passion to support him and make him successful, to help him be successful. But then I also realized that I was falling out of love with the inner workings of the entertainment industry. Because then you start talking to producers and actors, Black folks, and you're like, they ain't getting no respect. And they out here hustling, saving your name, saving your brand. So then I helped him with his production company. We did some small things that were really great, but not sustainable. And then I went back into the nonprofit world and started to do advocacy, and eventually started doing childcare advocacy at Crystal Stairs, which helps families find and pay for childcare. And that's where I was hired by my boss, Holly Mitchell. And then she said,
Holly's an icon out here, huh?
Holly is like... There's queens.
Yeah.
There's queens, right? Yeah. And so she is a queen for me.
And unapologetically Black, too.
Unapologetically. And she's like 6 foot tall. She got tattoos.
The dreads
she's
and
like, come at me. Right. You ain't got to get ready. If you stay ready, she's one of those. So she hired me, and then she said, I'm going to run for office. And I was like, wow. And then eventually she did. And she said, help me with my campaign. And I said, I don't know how to do that. And then a friend of mine said, if you love her, you will help her. And you will both learn on this journey. And I was like, okay. So I took a leave of absence from my job, helped her in her campaign. She won. And then she said, run my office, be my district director. And that was sort of the beginning for me.
And then through that journey, what other seats have you held? Is this not your first seat?
This is not my first rodeo, but it is my first asylum. So I was helping other people run, and then a seat came up, kind of, sort of, which I decided not to run for. And then the seat I decided to run for was the Los Angeles Community College District. So it's 7 members, running 9 campuses, largest community college district in the country, $6 billion enterprise. And I was on that board. And talk about deference, I got a story for you.
What?
We would have our meetings, our board meetings, and you'd have to go into the garage to park. And I had just gotten elected. And they put the face of all the members on the board, on the wall. And the parking attendant was like, I don't know where you're going to park, boo. You ain't on this list. And I was like, well, my name is Sydney. She's like, you ain't on the list, but I'll give you a little pass. So, okay. Second meeting, the next month. Same situation. I said, well, I'm here to park. We have a meeting. She said, well, you're not on the list. I said, well, I'm on the board. She said, you're not on the list. So I give you a little pass. Don't let this happen again. So the third time.
Third time's a charm. They fixed it by now.
Third time she went through the same thing. I said, lady, I'm not on the list. You're right. I'm on the wall. I'm parking.
Period.
And
then what did she say to that?
And then the next time I went to park, she was not there.
Oh, good. Well, that's the way karma works. I wish it would work that way all the time because the people that are making me a difference, they still there.
But you can fix that.
Oh yeah, I'm not.
Because Vice can become mayor.
Stop playing. So then after that, then you moved on up to something else.
So community college, and then the seat opened up in the assembly, a special election. And Holly was like, "You gonna do it?" And I was like, "Ooh." She was like, "Girl, stop playing. You've been representing this district as my district director. You better do it." So I did. Funny enough, the opposing side propped up someone who was a biracial woman
to run against you.
An interesting last name and first name to run against me. Mm-hmm. And I would put out a mail piece, and then like 2 days later, she would put out a competing mail piece. It was crazy.
But an interesting last name. Hold on, let's stop with that because people don't realize there's a name game. There's the ballot, the candidate statement game. There's like a whole science that goes into the games they play to trick the voter who may not be as informed or educated or aware into just picking somebody.
That's right. So when I ran for community college, which is a county-wide seat, I remember having conversations with folks and they said, well, it's too much, it's too expensive to run this kind of race with mail. You have to do slates. Don't put your face on some of them because the people in the more conservative parts of the county,
they'll just write you out because you're black
yes,
or a woman.
But if they just see Sydney Kamlager-Dove, they might think you're a man or they might think you're not black.
That's a real thing.
It's a real thing. Yeah. And they said, so in the black community, let people know who you are. So then, which was very interesting. You have conversations about how your hair should look. I wear my hair like this. Do you straighten it? All the things. Then we run for the assembly. They prop up somebody, and I was like, this is like Avatar. I'm running, what the heck is this? And then I'm there, and then Holly then runs, she was in the Senate, then she decides to run for a supervisor seat, and she wins. That seat opens up. I was like, I'm happy. And she's like, you gonna run for this seat?
So basically, the moral of the story is,
follow
Holly has just dragged you into everything.
She has dragged me into everything. But you know, when I was in the Senate, a state of 35 million people, I was the only black woman in the state Senate. Wow. And the state Senate had only one black person working for it.
That is California.
California, Jason, California. I was the only black woman in the state Senate of one of the most populous states in the country. And when we started talking about black staff working for the state Senate, we had one that was not
in the entire state.
Yes. So you know, you have Stockton and you have the city workers, you have city government. Yeah. And I don't mean like every single person, right? Because you have sanitation, you general management. But if you're looking at the general manager, the people the city controller, the people who are doing the budgets and
police chief,
all of that.
Yeah.
So just think about all of those people.
Yeah.
And not one of them is black. Anyone who comes before you, anyone who is providing you with a briefing. And so when I left, because I had run for this seat and won, I talked about that on the floor as I was saying my goodbyes. I said, it is really hard to be in this body and not have a mirror that I can see that reflects me and the millions of black women that are in this state. Mm-hmm. And we had hard stuff. I was pushing a bill to take slavery out of the Constitution. That didn't pass.
In California?
In California.
So slavery is still in our
yes,
state Constitution? As it meaning it's okay?
Yes. So it's yes.
But isn't that why more people of color, by the way, I'm glad that the first or the only black person in the state Senate was you, because when you black, that's like 100 blacks, you know? Because I'm black, and even in Stockton where, you know, thankfully we hired a new city manager who came in and diversified at the top level. So it's so diverse in there now. I mean, it's black folks
Wonderful.
Everywhere, brown folks, women, Asian, and
Wonderful.
You know, he did it right as our city had eliminated DEI, and I brought it right back. But he implemented before we even brought DEI back because he saw the need to make sure that it was reflecting of the city we serve. And it's very telling about our state because I am now falling in love with the idea of transforming California. And I just started a PAC. We're gonna talk about all that later, because I love this state, and I know it can be better. But how can a state that has slavery in its constitution still? How can they think that they're doing the work of the people that
Right.
in the state?
That was the question that I had. So when the state was founded, they say, oh, well, we never had slavery here, but that's because they didn't allow black people here. So it wasn't that they didn't have slavery. They said, we don't want black people here. Then they put this thing in the Constitution that essentially says, no slavery and voluntary servitude unless it is for the punishment of a crime. So I was trying to take this out. And they're like, oh, no, this is going to cost the state too much money. It was like a whole thing.
Is it because of the prison system?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I'm not saying pay everyone who works in prison $30 an hour. What I am saying is this is a moral value. Mm-hmm. And the moral proposition should be, this is a state that does not support slavery of any kind. You can still talk about rehabilitation, restitution, all of the things. Mm-hmm. But this is a moment. Would I have authored that if I wasn't black? I don't know. Mm-hmm. But it was important for me to do. It was important for me to fight for. I was saddened when it didn't pass. And I remember I brought my stepson and I was like, this is going to be a great day. We're going to see this amendment get passed. And then it failed. Mm-hmm. And that was a learning lesson for me. And then it was equally important for me to share that experience again to my colleagues when I was leaving, to remind them that we still have a lot of work to do. Mm-hmm. We are a diverse population in this state. We contribute a hell of a lot of money to the federal government. Mm-hmm. We are responsible for a lot of jobs and a number of industries that are incredibly important and competitive. And I think we have an obligation to do as right by our immigrant communities as we do our LGBTQ communities, as we do our women communities, as we do our black communities.
Why do you think legislators are afraid to go there?
I don't know, but it's moral courage, mm-hmm. And are you that afraid or maybe morally bankrupt that you're unwilling to say a truth? Mm-hmm. It's like some words, I know people I don't want to say diversity right now. Okay, but World Cup is happening, and I don't know about you, but the majority of the teams that I'm watching got all kind of colors.
Yeah, because the teams are trying to win.
Yes.
And they're trying to have the best who can win.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And so I'm like, why do you not say that? I have a diet that I'm on. I don't eat the same thing every single day. Mm-hmm. I don't have just one thing in my refrigerator. Mm-hmm. There is a menu of options. When I am hiring for a company, I don't just hire one type of person. I'm trying to fill all the gaps so I can be as competitive and baller as possible. Mm-hmm. So I don't know why we celebrate it in so many other industries, and then we get all mealy-mouthed when it comes to constituents.
Well, now, California, let's talk about, because I'm a registered Democrat, you're a Democrat. And I said to one of my friends,
he was like, I ain't registered. I'm registered. I don't want people coming after me.
Well, no, you're registered.
Okay.
Well, no, obviously, I mean, she's registered Democrat. Please don't say, oh, she only a Democrat. She ain't really. Yeah. Because people have said to me when they saw my style of campaigning, they're like, you're like Trump.
What does that mean?
Because I say whatever I want, but obviously it's with all the love for these issues that are important to us.
Correct.
Trump, I was offended, but also I understood what they're saying. Like, you look at Gavin, you look at you look at Jasmine. I mean, obviously you all are not following that traditional, book of, let's talk about, because that's not relating to people.
No.
You all are relating to people, and I'm going to talk about how I think the Democrats in some way are fumbling. And I'll be looking at our party, and I know you probably look at some of our peers too, like, come on now. But I'm registered Democrat, and I'm like, okay, state of California, what, fourth largest economy? Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. Homelessness, crazy. State unsafe. You kill somebody who breaks in your house, they got more rights than you almost. Prisons overpopulated, and there's people in there that probably don't need to be in there. That 3 strikes law that racist created. And it wasn't Kamala who y'all tried to put that on. She was the AG. It was that go back and do your research. The people don't do their research.
They don't.
Black women get blamed for everything, huh?
They do. We do. Yes, we do. And then we get blamed for it, and then we have to fix it. And then they give credit to somebody else.
Or give it to a mediocre white man like Trump. But we'll get to that.
Ooh.
Okay, so California. It's a mess. And you started in Hollywood with Delray and then went all the way up to the top. Why are the jobs leaving Hollywood? How do we get California?
Yeah.
How do we get California back on track?
Okay, that's a big ass question. So I'm originally from Chicago. This is my adopted state. I love my state.
Yes.
It really is the golden state, and the California dream is still a very real thing. I think we have to get back to basics so that we can get our shine back. I do think we have been cities like Stockton, like LA, like San Francisco, have been starved from federal dollars because we have allowed ourselves to succumb to this narrative about like do more with less and then like do more with nothing. And that's really hard when you are an urban center that tourists, that, internationals come to, flock to. Exactly. So I don't understand why we as Democrats allowed ourselves to buy into not giving us our fair share when we are shouldering huge burdens, folks who are homeless when they are, this is real. We take in a lot of folks from a lot of other states because of the subsidies the social services that we offer because of the weather. Like, that's a thing. I do think we have to have different conversations about regulation. I'm one of these people that's like, how do we stimulate the creation of small businesses? Like, what if we had a platform that says we want 1 million small businesses that are sustainable to be opened in the state of California over the next X years? Like, how are we really going to support? How are we going to celebrate new businesses? How are we going to celebrate the ones that are diverse? How are we going to celebrate the ones that have stayed in business during the course of time?
And people have to get educated on like SBA. I'm a small business, even though I have a large influence. I'm considered a small business. I worked so hard last year, Congresswoman.
I know you did.
To have the most profitable year. So I'd be eligible for the $7 million SBA loan. We go apply for the loan, we hit all the marks. Then there was language in the loan that said if any of your investors on your cap table or any of their partners are from a foreign country, you are ineligible. Right. So because I have two partners that have a partner who is from a foreign country, we're not eligible.
Right.
How crazy is that?
Well, so it's super crazy because, that story, and then put that next to all of the corruption and the collusion that we're seeing with this administration, where you got like sovereign wealth funds, like getting money. You've got the Commerce Secretary's sons and the President's sons opening up a business all of a sudden, so
crypto?
Not only crypto, the mining, a $6 billion mining deal.
Elon spending $250 to get in the presidency to then go and sell Teslas on the front of the White House lawn and then become Doge governor, the head of Doge, and then
let's talk about Elon, who had SpaceX, fledgling, and Tesla. The reason why that man is as successful as he is, this immigrant, is because he got a loan from the federal government, hundreds of millions of dollars. And he did not have to go through what you went through. Mm-hmm. He didn't have your story, but he is a success because of our taxpayer dollars. So why aren't we? Because you know why? Because the state of California said, we're going to take a chance on this clean energy idea with these cars. We want Tesla to be a success. That would be a great innovation for the United States. Mm-hmm. So we should be having that same sensibility about small businesses. Because I don't know about you, but I feel good when I walk down the street and I'm like, hey, this small business is open. Who's up in here? Let me see. Let me buy this. Let me patronize. Woo, girl, I like what you're doing. Mm-hmm. Like, that makes you feel good. It also makes your community safe.
How do we, though, as Black people, brown people, women, gay, everything that they're fighting against, how do we bind together to change that? Because the fact that Elon can go and get hundreds of millions of dollars without going through a process, for me to just get $7 million that I was eligible for, but because my partners are from a foreign country, how do we change that?
So you said that everything that they're fighting against, and I was thinking, yes, and secretly love, because they secretly love all the folks that they talk bad about.
I said this, and I'm not going to. I said about somebody in my community, I said they love our penises and not our policies. And baby, you would have thought I did. It became a thing, but it's like
because it was a thing.
You love our music, you love our men and women, you love our vibe, our clothes, our fashion, our music. But can we talk about y'all killing these Black men, or can we talk about the incarcerated population of Black people and brown people, or You called Elon an immigrant. He white, so y'all didn't think he was an immigrant. That's the thing. The immigrants only black and brown.
Correct.
So how do we change that?
So the first question is, I don't know about you, but a lot of black people I talk to like business. Everyone has a hustle. They're trying to start a business, keep a business, grow a business. It is not a bad word. And I don't know about you, but I love all the small businesses that I see and mid-size that are hiring people, because oftentimes we are hiring our people and we are hiring people that will not get hired someplace else. We are saying, I am taking a chance on you. And all of those risks that pay out generate income and revenue back into our community. So we have to change the narrative and own it. Own entrepreneurialism, own hustle, and declare ourselves unapologetic about going after the money. You can go after a loan. Now, we're in Congress now. We are not in the minority. We are not in the majority, I'm sorry. So we don't have control over funding mechanisms. So Republicans are. We do something called community funding projects. You, Vice Mayor of Stockton, will say, hey, Congressman, your person.
Josh Harder.
Josh Harder, we need a grant for this nonprofit organization doing X, Y, and Z. Well, because of what the Republicans have done, you are not eligible if you are a nonprofit. So they make decisions, and they have said you cannot give money to nonprofits. You cannot give money to healthcare organizations. You cannot give money to any organization that supports the LGBTQ community. You cannot give money to any organization that supports reproductive healthcare. So when people talk about we need to win in November, part of it is so that we can change that criteria and open all of those portals back up so that nonprofit organizations and groups that are doing good work in our community are eligible for that money.
How do you, so just listening to what you have to deal with and me thinking in my mind what I have to deal with on a local level, because people watching, you know, politics is not just Trump. It's your city council, your county supervisors, all of the things happening locally, but you have to pay attention to the whole slate, all the way up to the top. How do you stay in the fight and stay motivated and determined when there's constant nonsensical attacks on democracy and everything that you stand for?
I lean a lot on faith, but I also lean a lot on culture. So we are BET, you know, the hot day.
Burning up.
Although you look good in that pink.
And you guys look good too.
Come on. I was like, okay, fire.
I tried.
Fire. But you do things, I mean, you know, it's a fun event with lots of celebrities, but it's also like I lean into my culture. I'm listening to my music. I'm practicing self-care. I'm talking to other people that are not in politics, that are fighting their own fight, and I'm getting inspiration. So I will tell you, I am thoroughly inspired by you. I went to the Impact Awards, and I was like, damn. This is a lot. And all these people showed up to get their flowers, to give you your flowers. And it was chaotic and wild and crazy and just unapologetically Black, but also the vibes. You know, and so I go to places, to things like that, to get inspired, to be okay.
You got to come next year. Next year's.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay. I'm
year.
ready.
And we got to make sure I'm going to put you right in the thick of it all.
It was wild too. It was like this pit of like all these stars. It was just like, it was so bright. But that's how I find inspiration. And I'm talking to people like in my neighborhood who are telling me their stories of resiliency, right? How they've battled a cancer, right? How they got a child back. And that inspires me. I'm like, because if she can wake up and get through that, I got a girlfriend, she had cancer, she had a brain tumor, she had shingles, she had vertigo. Like it happened all at the same time. And she came through that. So Brigitte's like inspires me, right? And you just find it in different ways. And I remain humble. I say, Lord, you know, like, continue to gift me with the things that I need to speak the truth. And I will continue to do it.
So you represent LA in the 37th Congressional District. Your commute is about 5.5 hours to DC.
Yes.
My commute is about 5.5 hours to Stockton.
Yes.
But when you're in LA, even though you represent us over there in DC, Do you think about Hollywood, the film industry leaving California, or the impacts to jobs
Yes.
and all the things in California that are happening?
So when I worked for Delroy, we did, so I worked on Gone in 60 Seconds. I worked on, the one with Jet Li. I met Aaliyah. I mean, it was Romeo Must Die. We did some good ones. And they were huge sets. And they went overtime. It was a lot of money, right? And I would talk to people who were gaffers and grips, and they said, in this gig, I was able to buy a second home, a vacation home. I was able to put my third kid through college. Those are like great memories of like working class folks in this industry. Their grandfather or their uncle was in the industry. Now I take tours and the studios are closed. They can't rent them out. Or there's small productions that are like homegrown, which aren't necessarily generating a ton of revenue. That hurts me. We fought for a tax credit for the state of California. We needed to compete with New York. I was like, I don't know why we're not trying to meet what New York is doing or Louisiana is doing. I mean, I like Tyler Perry, but I was like, why are we sending all this work to Atlanta? I don't think...
I love you, Tyler. Tyler was at the Impact
I love you too. He was. But like,
why?
I'm fighting for my state because we have everything. And we also have the experience because we have the folks who were born into this craft who know how to do it. They have the history. And then when you talk to folks and they say, I used to do that, the jobs dried up. Now I moved to Vegas and I'm a nurse. So then you go to Congress and you hear folks from Louisiana and Georgia. And then you talk to folks and they're like, yeah, we don't even shoot here no more. We're in Romania.
But this is the thing. California state taxes is crazy.
Crazy.
And as somebody who makes a lot of money, Congresswoman, crazy. I told one of my friends, I said, this is where I was going with the registered Democrat. I am registered Democrat. I could never be MAGA. There's nowhere in the world. I tell the Amber Roses of the world, I don't understand. I don't know you. But I would never be Republican either, but I see me moving more independent because I'm so frustrated with our party. And I'm frustrated because, and I'm like a lot of Americans who just feel like they're banging their head against the wall, to try to get them to understand our perspective. And those of us who make money, who obviously identify with all of the social issues and stuff as a Democrat, want to understand how do we get our party to really dial in on the needs that we have as Democrats in a state where it's unsafe, it's overtaxed, and just in many ways with the homelessness getting out of control.
So a lot of what I hear from my constituents and from you is it's too expensive to live here. And I do think that people are willing to pay if they see a return.
Agree with that.
But if you're like, well, I'm paying all these taxes and the streets aren't clean, there's a homeless person shooting up, somebody stole my dog, all the things, right? Then you start asking, well, what is happening with my money? And you say, well, these ballot initiatives keep popping up. And because you're in local government and you need revenue because you see how it's actually being dispersed. And there is a need because we're being starved by the federal government, right? And it's worse now than before. And you say, and as a voter, you say, well, I'm actually willing to pay a half cent more to have a better school system. And then you do it, and then it seems like the school system doesn't get fixed.
Right.
And you're like, okay, I'm tired.
Right.
So I concede that we have got to do a better job of explaining to our constituents how we are using the money, where it is going, and we have to be accountable to that, right? And I think there are many of us that are trying. Some folks, I think, are maybe unwilling to throw a predecessor under the bus or think it's too complicated to explain and the average constituent or voter doesn't want to hear it. But I think that people do want the truth. And they do want you to, like what I do, what Jasmine does is like we pull open the hood and we say, look at all this madness. Look at all this hypocrisy and duplicity. But we still need these services. I submit that we do need the services and we are overtaxing ourselves, hoping to get to solutions that we can't get to because the system is broken. So we have got to fix the system. You go to other countries, the taxes are far bigger than ours, but they have a completely subsidized healthcare system. I've heard so many stories. Somebody say, you know, my husband and I went on this trip. He broke his leg. We went to the hospital. We got a bill for $100, and he had surgery. That ain't ever gonna happen here.
Right.
So we have to have a national conversation, a state conversation about what we value and what we want this state to be. I believe that we can get the shine back. I also believe we have to have real conversations about what we're going to prioritize. And we must get back to supporting entities that generate revenue and that create jobs and that bring dignity.
I was going to join the campaign of Eric, what's his name, Congressman?
Swalwell?
Literally the next week.
Yeah, aren't you glad you didn't?
Baby, when I say there's a God watching over me, was that not the fastest crash and burn you've ever seen in your life?
It was the fastest crash and burn. I mean, John Edwards and Howard Dean, there's some oldies there, but
I forgot
that
about those.
was, that shook me. Because I was like, I still ask my staff, I'm like, who? The interesting thing is I talked to a lot of my CBC members and I was like, did you know about this? Everyone's scratching their heads, and a lot of Black members like, I had heard nothing about this. But that was a crash and burn of a magnitude I have not seen.
But when you look at California governor, I mean, obviously Becerra is going to be the guy. I mean, we see that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I'm meeting with him in a week or so. I mean, I'm going to do everything I can to help him, obviously, because there's no other option for me. But when I looked at California and the whole governor run, there wasn't a star that jumped out to me.
Yeah.
Did a star jump out to you?
Well, the one I thought crashed and burned, like for real. We're so used to, I remember when Arnold Schwarzenegger was running and I was like, why do people want to vote for him? And then people said, well, it's because they want the Terminator to sign their diploma, right? And then Gavin is super spicy, and Jerry Brown was super spicy, right? And then Gray Davis was a good legislator and executive, not super spicy. What happened to him? He got recalled. So I do think California likes a little spice. I think that's why so many people were like, Kamala, run. Like, we want the pizzazz. And I don't, I do like pizzazz. Maybe I'll get it from someplace else and not the governor this time, because what I really want is for California to get back on track. Like, I want to be that badass bear that comes to Congress and eats all these other fools up from these other states. So we got to put some bass back in our voice.
And he's sensible and educated and experienced, and he knows what he's doing.
And he was an executive, right? He was an AG, he was HHS, he understands, he has relations with the federal government.
But will he let us keep our clubs open till 4 a.m.? See, California needs to get its tax base up by having these clubs open. Because when you think about Miami and you think about New York and Atlanta, we outside. I'm still outside.
I'm not outside because bad things happen after dark outside.
Well, I have
but
security.
We take it in.
I have security.
Okay.
But I feel like there is a younger, like with,
people like that.
Social media, there's like a whole world out there where these younger people, they want
outside.
If I was the governor of California, let me tell you some things I would do.
Okay.
Tell me as a congresswoman if it's Democratic or not Democratic, because I'm going to just say not Democrat, but Democrat or not, okay?
Okay.
Clubs open immediately 4 a.m.
Yes, Democratic.
Okay.
Chicago does it. New York does it.
Be safe at home bill, where if you come in my house for any reason unauthorized to break in and steal or eat my mail or anything, I can kill you and get away with it. Because I'm going to tell you right now, somebody break in my house, they got more rights in California right now than I do. At least I feel that way.
Well, no, I think self-defense is important. When you said be safe inside, I was like, does that mean like wear a condom inside? I don't know what that. I'm glad
I'm on prep, so that's optional. But,
I'm glad you specified.
But
I think that's a right. If you come into somebody's house, like you've heard these stories, somebody waiting outside your house with a machete.
Yes.
Yeah. Like, I don't support that.
A ban on eliminating DEI. I know that should be a no-brainer. I don't know why we are fighting to talk about diversity, equity, inclusion in 2026.
I don't know why either. Because the reality is...
Because they want to make America white again, because Project 2025 is the Bible, and 2025 that Kamala warned us about, because it came out of a black woman's mouth, y'all thought it was a lie.
Preach.
Right.
Preach. And now you have, like, Pete Hegseth is not promoting women or people of color who have earned the promotion.
Pete Hegseth, that's the podcaster?
I know.
Okay, I
Real
always
talk.
Real
ask. Talk.
When you and Congresswoman Crockett or all of you are just kind of huddled up in a real all black pro-black
Yes.
office, do y'all shut the door and go, "What the fuck is going on over here?"
All the time, all the time. And somebody's like, somebody bring out the wine or bring out a little bubbly or something. Yes, we shake our heads and we talk about all the things that you would think we would talk about.
Okay, so Pete Hegseth, who was a podcaster,
Yes.
is now running the
Yes.
Department of War.
Yes.
That used to be the Department of Defense.
Yes.
Because we aren't a nation that wants to go to war.
Yes.
We are a nation that defends democracy.
Yes. Right. With the peace president who's going into all kind of wars. And the dude who, like, I don't even think really served, right, is now running the Department of Defense and not promoting qualified individuals who understand what it means to defend our country and to keep us safe and really to help us not get into wars.
But what did he say about women in the military?
Well, he said that we should not really be having them. And then he called people ingrates for booing him when he was talking about some of this.
Okay, now the head of our FBI, he has his own plane.
Oh, boy. No, he don't have his own plane. He's using your plane, and he's not reimbursing you for going on his dates with his singer girlfriend.
Which is crazy because when the vice president, Kamala Harris, had invited me to go with her to Africa, they let me know I was going to have to pay for my own ticket.
Right.
Because you have to pay for your own seat
Right.
on the plane because the taxpayers pay for that.
Correct. And so
Kamala should have just invited all the homies and just rode out.
She certainly should have. It could have been a soul plane galore. She should have done that. And had she known then what she knows now, I hope she would have.
The reality, though, is they would have impeached all of them. Obama could not have done one thing that Trump
he
has
could
done.
not even wear a tan suit.
Well, when he became president, they said he wasn't even American.
Right, right.
So why are Black Americans, Brown Americans not outraged at the hypocrisy, not just from the mediocrity in the White House and this administration now, and the fact that none of us could ever, and just the constant reminder from them every day on television that Black and Brown is under attack? Why are we not outraged?
I think we're outraged. I think we're quietly outraged because a lot of us we give side eye, and then we give our people the eye, our allies, and we're like, you know what this is all about, right? And so how are you, now creating or resurrecting your Underground Railroad so that you can continue to do the work? I think some of us are tired of telling people, I told you so. Like, I'm tired of saying it. So I'm not going to, but it doesn't mean I'm not going to continue to do the work. I'm going to do it in a different way. Mm-hmm. I also think post Kamala in 24, a lot of us have been like, where were you? The 92% is still very real. Mm-hmm. And many of us are still waiting for a mea culpa. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like you stayed away, why? Mm-hmm. When we told you this was going to happen, so why? And now you're mad and asking me how come I'm not jumping up. Why? I actually am. I'm doing it in a different way, but I'm not here to appease you because you still haven't come to me for us to have a real conversation about your participation in this madness that you're in. Mm-hmm. And this man who seems singularly focused on taking out people that I care about. Mm-hmm. So like we have to have that national conversation as Democrats. Mm-hmm. Like, I want to build a democracy, a house of democracy that holds us all. Mm-hmm. And I need everyone to participate. Mm-hmm. And you can come with the bricks, you can come with the wood, you can come with the nails, you can come with the water, you can come with, the beans and rice with the music. Mm-hmm. But come and participate because we all need to build this house of democracy.
Mm-hmm. Hakeem Jeffries.
Yes.
What do you think of him?
I think this is an incredibly disciplined brother who is doing his damnedest to keep a caucus together that has gone through cycles of emotions, afraid, kind of like catatonic, when the dude came in, Trump, and was like, what's going on? All this stuff happening, all these norms. He has an incredibly difficult job of like herding all these cats and all kinds of people that want power. And he's like, can we get to 218 so that we can have power? He is a black man. His name is Hakeem Sekou Jeffries. The brother is West Indian. And I think people do not want to see another black man ascend into leadership. And I pray for him every day that he is able to sustain.
How do we get him and the DCCC to see the importance of investing in black media to reach black people? Because that was my criticism of Vice President Harris and that whole ecosystem. The DNC went over there, tried to get them on board. I think the DNC's chair, his assistant, tried to get me to sleep with him. I was like, I'm not going to do that to get no money. Because I'm not, I don't do that. That's prostitution. I'm not into that. He ain't there no more.
I love it.
But how do we get the DNC and the DCCC to know, like, if you really want to reach that base, those of us in the ecosystem, the shade rooms, the ball alerts, the neighborhood talks, the Hollywood Unlocks, we talk to 1 billion people a week collectively. How do we get them to see the importance of spending power with black-owned media versus them putting it everywhere else but black?
Well, another fair criticism. And you're talking about a value proposition. I submit that, and I have been in rooms where these conversations have happened, and people have said, well, if you just talk to black folks once, they'll get on board. Where else are they going to go?
No, that ain't true.
I know it's not true.
Yeah.
And we saw it in 24.
Yeah.
So my thing is, this is a value proposition. We are actually worth quite a bit. And you're chasing the same high that you got in some election in 2016, thinking these people are going to come back to you, when if you just consistently invested in this community that will have your back, that has built an infrastructure, that in fact built a movement that got voting rights for people, then you probably would yield a greater return.
I'm going to have to send this to your office for clearance because I'm taking that. And I'm putting that in the slide because it's the reality.
It's the reality.
The unions, we used to tell people you have to say something 17 times for a person to get it. And so if you invested 17 times, maybe it will become, I think about this phone call I got from the White House when Biden was there, and they had emailed me and said, oh, we would like to have a meeting with you. And I said, I don't know what I did, but okay. I get on the call, it's 2 black people, and they got the presidential seal behind them. And they said, we want to invite you to the White House to meet the president. And I said, okay. And I was listening to them, and I was so frustrated with the DNC and the DCCC at not investing in any political dollars in our company that I said, let me just save you time. I said, and this is exactly the words I said. I am not the you call to the cookout. I am the that you want to be a part of the fabric or whatever you're building for the American people. So if you think I'm gonna come to sip the eggnog and sit on the South Lawn and take a picture with some napkins, you're wasting time. They said that's exactly what I want you to. So they did bring me in. They wanted me to be a part of the fabric, and they did a good job. It was a woman named Erica Lowe. I always give her flowers. She did a really good job of doing that, but we just couldn't get to that side of where when you talk about wanting to change the wealth gap in our country. Just talking media, invest in us, right? So I love what you're saying because most politicians are not getting, or public servants are not getting that. You do need to tap into that culture.
Now, take it to the business model. People are investing and giving a whole bunch of money to LeBron because why? Because he fills seats. That is an investment that they know they will see a return on. It was the same thing happens in politics. And I know you have seen it. You give just a little bit of money to this organization and they go out and we do all the things and then some, and we bring you back great returns. And then why you want to come back the next cycle and say, okay, do that, but I'm going to give you less. I don't understand.
Because they know we're fighting for scraps, so we should be happy with whatever we get.
And I've been in the meetings where they say, well, we will give you this community X, but we're going to give this other community 5X. And I've been like, but that return is not guaranteed. So we have to, D-Trip, DNC, you've called it out. We have got to invest in movement making. So you know why the Republicans were so successful? Because there's a little organization called Turning Point. And the dude was like, I'm going to go and talk to young people and I'm going to go on campuses. And you know what? There were donors who said, this is a wild idea, just a few, but they said, I'm going to invest in this because I see the return. And look what happened. They tapped into people who were never going to vote. And maybe they are the MAGAs, but they've turned out for this guy. And it was because they said, we are going to consistently invest and then we will see our fruit come to fruition.
Okay, she's opening Pandora's box. I hope you know that. Because this is the conversation the Democrats don't want to have, but this is what makes people more relatable to Democratic leadership when we can just call a cat a cat. Not only did the Turning Point USA, the Charlie Kirks do that, or the Candace Owens, because that's a black woman talking to black people about their stuff. Yeah. But it was the creation of Rumble. It was the buying of Twitter from Elon. It was the Meta taking away the misinformation strikes and making it a social highway for freedom of speech, where you can just say anything reckless. They systematically transformed the minds of people by using all these mediums and investing them. Yes. And the Democrats didn't.
Yes.
How do we change that? This conversation, more conversations? Me and you and Hakeem at lunch?
Bring it on. Let's call them up. I don't know why Democrats are afraid of money and investment. Mm-hmm. And I feel like it's more than just the kumbaya. You have to say, I'm going to invest in this system. I've had conversations with big donors. I've had philanthropy world, and I say, well, why are you silent right now? Like, now is a time when you should be, rebuilding the Underground Railroad and preparing for what's next. Mm-hmm. There's like the real civil society. Mm-hmm. Get off your asses. Mm-hmm. I don't understand. I've talked to folks in the larger entertainment community about that. We would have conversations in our caucus about, the podcast, and it was like getting on the podcast, working with the influencers. And I saw this diagram, and it was all these red dots. It was all the red, all the Republican influencers and podcasters, and then just a few blue ones. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, why are we talking about working with influencers when we should be talking about building the infrastructure? Mm-hmm. Because all of these dots are still connected to some kind of infrastructure or pipeline or network that's being funded and supported. That's capacity building. And so you can do the one-offs, but like a Jason Lee, who says, I've created this infrastructure, I have the capacity, we can expand, this can be our reach. We should be working with those kinds of entities to say, how do we build this? Because how we receive information has changed. Mm-hmm. Who we trust has changed.
And how we communicate
has changed. So if you're using a 1980s model, it's not going to work. But
this is where I think people like me, you, those of us who are like-minded need to come together and figure out, because I always say to people when I talk about Hollywood Unlocked, we talk about the T and da-da-da, but I also use the same platform to get in office and 3 other people in office and show the model of how we took over a city. Now, how do we take over a state or country? Mm-hmm. Because I do believe that pendulum is going to swing. Trump's not going to last forever. He does want a 3rd term. What do you think about that?
No.
He won't get that.
I don't even think he can survive. I mean, have you looked at this man? He is grotesque. I think IBS every time I see him. He won't last.
But how your biggest donor was an immigrant and your wife is an immigrant, but you don't like immigrants?
Don't get me started. Now you're going to make my little hairs.
You said, fuck his ass. And then you went on to say, oh my God, yes, of course I am. Stevie Wonder can even see how much this war is costing us. Gas prices are going up. It's almost $10 in California. And fertilizer is going up. We got lots of agriculture out here. Stockton, be the biggest. You name it, the prices have gone up, and this dude, Dr. Jesus, is wanting to spend $2 billion of your money every day rather than help you get health care. Fuck his ass. You said that in public. And just today, he announced, we ain't got no deal with Iran. We're going to bomb him probably today.
Dude, first of all.
Congresswoman, what morbid world reality show are we trapped in?
I don't know. I was like, is this Tubi? What is this? I need an upgrade. I said that because we had come out of a meeting, and the briefers were talking to us about the cost of fertilizer because of the war. And they said some states have already started planting, but other states, like California, because we have a good weather all year round, are going to start planting later. And those farmers are not going to be able to afford the fertilizer because of the war. Mm-hmm. On top of the fact that the gas prices have gone up. Then when I said it gas was like $9.82. Mm-hmm. So I said that, I will tell you, then I was talking to my mother later on that night, and she was like, ooh, you're going to be on CNN. I got to go. And then I was like, oh God. And then my phone blew up. She was like, City Kai, I can't believe you said the bad word. I can't believe you said the bad word. And she put me on probation. But I told her I was only saying what the people are feeling about this dude who is taking our money to do a reflecting pool, to do this Trump arc, with this plane, with this UFC, with this $6 billion deal, like all of this shit.
Yeah.
And I'm tired of it. Yeah. And I had enough. So I'm sorry, Mother, if you're watching.
But everybody's feeling that. But what happened to Congress having to approve going to war?
Well, so the Republicans kind of stopped us. They stalled out the vote. Eventually, a couple of them lost their primaries because of Trump. And then folks found a spine. And then we were able to pass the resolution reminding the president that only Congress has the authority to authorize war. And he got pissed. So he got mad. He was calling them. He was like, don't do it, or whatever he said. Don't do it. I don't know how he talks. And then the Senate did it because they got pissed because he meddled in some of their primaries. So, how about this? Represent the people all the time. Don't just represent the people when you lose a primary, booze, okay? But we do have the authority. Congress, Republicans, because they're in the majority, have abdicated. They've abdicated investigating.
So he can do whatever he wants.
He thinks he can, but like I said.
Because all those Republicans, and this is what I'm telling the mayor in Stockton right now. And I said to her, first of all, I said, y'all all going to jail. And even though they're all acting as if they're above the law, we have a black state controller in California, and Miss Cohen is digging. I love Malia Cohen. If you are watching, she is digging for her life.
Okay.
And I throw her a shovel every time I get a chance.
They're all going to jail.
All going to jail. And so, they're not used to council members speaking out. But I said, again, like I didn't take an oath of secrecy. I took an oath to follow what the people want and deserve and be a responsible person in managing their taxpayer resources. But
your city is not a high-income city.
Yeah, no, it's not.
No, and so when people are paying taxes, that is hard-earned money.
And to your point, they need to see it working for them.
They need to see it.
But this is what I've said. She now is in for till 2028, but y'all need to change this council. And I say that locally, but now let me say on the where you are. This is where the Republicans who aren't happy with what's going on in this country need to change their representative. Now, next term, just vote Democrat.
100%.
Because you're going to see that there's going to be a blue wave, right?
Yeah, I believe there's going to be a blue wave. Now, you do know that Democrats, we have this knack for getting in our own way. So we too have to remain, I'm talking to you. Yeah. We have to remain disciplined through November. And then right after the election, we got to come correct. Like I have been gathering receipts, but you can't just hold on to the receipts. Yeah. You got to show the receipts because that's what the people want. So investigating, subpoenaing, going after the number 2s and the number 3s and the number 4s, the people that he doesn't care about. So if they get thrown under the bus, so be it.
Kristi Noem needs to go.
Honey child.
Her and her husband with the boobs. And
the America of the Avengers and the boyfriend, the boob.
And Pam Bondi y'all need to go and get Pam Bondi.
Pam Bondi got. She got.
She didn't get got as in locked up yet.
Right. Hopefully that will happen.
God got her together.
God did get her together.
Yes.
I don't want to talk bad about her, but when she walked up with a little Band-Aid, I was like, what is this?
Yes.
But Pam Bondi does need to get God. Because I think she has more information since she was in Florida during all this Epstein stuff. Like, she should be...
The way she was talking to y'all...
She was manic, though, yo. So she came in and she all huffy. And then they said, are you going to apologize to these survivors? And so...
Did she even turn around?
No. And then, we're asking her these questions and she's talking about the SP 500 and Biden and all this stuff. And then obviously she comes to me at some point and she's like, well, you represent Culver City. Crime. You want to talk about crime? Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking...
I remember that.
Yes. Now, $25 smoothies from Erewhon is a crime.
It is a crime.
But what you're talking about, lady, I ain't got no time for that.
Culver City is Culver City.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
like yoga capital
And
of
let's
the
be
world.
clear,
probably.
crime is everywhere, but the most crime happening right now is in the White House.
Is in the White House.
Yeah.
Is in the White House. Yeah. So Kristi Noem should get real got. I don't know what she's doing, and just her new job as an Avenger, right? She's working for the special envoy to the Americas. Like, what is that really?
But when the Democrats take over,
We have to get them.
When I tell you, y'all got to roll up your sleeves and go to work.
Yeah.
Because black folks didn't get reparations, but January 6th rioters did.
Don't get me started. And not only do they get reparations, they can be hired by the federal government. There are some reportedly working for ICE. So, yeah. Roll up your sleeve. Eat your Wheaties. I tell my Dems, eat the Wheaties, because we got to go to work. You got to make the case for the American people on day one after November. You have to go after these fools and show the receipts to the American people while you are sharing your plan for 28. I don't need to wait for the candidate. I need to have the plan right now and say, hey, candidate, this is what I want. I want better support for small businesses. I want small business loans to go where they need to go. I want to incentivize and subsidize to build. I want to spur innovation. I want us to double down on our educational system. I want us to talk about student loan debt and forgive it. I want to make sure that we have a healthcare system that holds us all. I want to support community schools. I believe that if you have a solid school system and if you have a safe community, then you will have jobs and grow jobs, because businesses will say, I'm going to come here because employees are here. They feel safe here. They want to have families. They want to stay. That's how you build a business. Then that's how they decide to, become entrepreneurs. That's how you blossom. Mm-hmm. And we have to have that plan together. We also have to go after these monopolies and all of the antitrust violations that are happening, where it seems like one thing is gobbling up all of the competition. And I'm okay if you want to get your check, but when you're all of a sudden diluting or getting rid of jobs, then that becomes a problem.
Should Donald Trump go to prison?
Yes.
Should Pam Bondi go to prison?
Yes.
Should
Yes.
I can't even say his whole name.
Yes.
Kash Patel.
Yes.
Kristi Noem.
Yes.
Ooh.
Lutnick. Yes. Marco Rubio. Yes.
The Vice President, Vance.
Yes. And he can, with the chicken coop, take the chicken coop and the baby mama, everybody go. Go and go and go.
Democrats got a lot of work to do.
A lot.
Yeah. Okay, listen. Wait, Gavin Newsom for president?
Yeah. Is that going to happen?
Who are you? I'm asking, who do you think? Is there even a candidate yet?
There's not a candidate yet. Okay. There's a lot of jockeying. And so what I tell folks is,
what does jockeying mean for the?
I think people are hey, they're testing the water.
They're filling it out to see.
Filling it out, what's the vibe?
Yeah.
So I'm just going to say, as a member of the Congressional Black Caucus, if you're a candidate and you are not talking about the Voting Rights Act and what happened, and if you are not out there talking about voter education and registration, if you are not out there supporting entities like NAACP and others that have a mandate for registering 6 million voters.
Defending DEI.
If you are not out there defending DEI and having conversations with your businesses that understand the value of diversity, then please don't come to the CBC asking for some love from Black people, because we're interested in talking about Black people.
Oh, I had a call with the CBC Foundation, so I got to talk to you offline because I didn't think about the CBC. And that's what I love about having a relationship with Karen Bass. She was running against Spencer Pratt, which was the craziest thing ever. That was like baby Trump.
I was like, dude, this dude's a victim and he ain't got no qualifications. And at least he said it. He said that in the debate. He said, I don't really know, but I just can call somebody. I said, okay.
But it's scary though that voters.
Well, so what
I understand voter frustration, and
Yeah.
I understand
Yeah.
the complexities now being on the other side as somebody who had to really read the candidate statement, had to really think about it, and where am I going to be number one on the ballot? You know, all those things matter.
Yeah.
People don't know.
Well, yeah. I mean, so I was on the ballot this time, and I lost my mail-in, so I had to go and vote. And there's this new law that says if you're elected or a candidate, they take you off the rolls because of violence. And so when I voted, I was on the second page, and I was like, I hope people turn to the second page to vote for me. But Spencer Pratt, I think he was running as a victim candidate, because he was really sharing his story about
houses.
Right. But I also think people are feeling victimized by a government that has forgotten them. And we have an obligation to make the government work for everyone. And we have an obligation to see folks and to really listen to what they're complaining about. Because it is hard if you have to walk over a bunch of people laying on your street to take your child to school, and you're hoping that nothing bad happens to your child. We need to have a conversation about your family and your child and your safety. And we also have to have a conversation about getting that person off the street permanently and getting them the help that they need, and being honest about the kind of help that they need.
And reminding them that your government only works if you participate in it.
Amen.
So lastly, before we get out here, go to the next thing. One of my assistant, he came to work one day and he had these braids. And I called Rob, who's the COO of the company /HR, and I said, I'm going to ask him about these braids. And he said, you better not, because of that Crown Act. And I said, the Crown Act? What is the Crown Act? We got a Crown Act. I mean, like a king of the tea. You co-drafted that.
Yes.
And so because of you, I couldn't have the conversation about his braids.
But what was wrong with the braids?
No, well, I can't say anything was wrong because of the Crown Act.
Well, get Raul out here so we can give you a waiver so you can talk about these.
No. But for people that don't know, again, that's why representation matters, because there were people discriminated against us for our hairstyles, and it only pertained to us.
Yes.
And you stopped us employers from going there.
Well, yes, we did. And we took it across the country, and other states adopted it. And I don't know if you remember, there was this clip that went viral about a young Black athlete who had locks, and they made him cut his hair in order to play. And so the Crown Act really protects him and other folks like him who were either discriminated against because of their natural hair, or were told they couldn't wear their hair naturally. And I mean, I wear my hair curly most of the time, and I certainly don't think I should be judged about the quality of my work based on my hairstyle. And we do know that has happened. Yeah.
Well, no, his quality of work is good with or without the braids. So, and I didn't violate the Crown Act.
No, I
not just in honor of this interview, but just because I'm unapologetically Black too. All right. Well, listen, I love that you came on the show and we got into all things, but now we got to get into one game before you leave.
Okay. Let's do it.
Let's go. Well, listen, here at the Jason Lee Show, we like to play some games and they all go viral. This is one that the fans love. It's called Name Drop. It's just what it sounds like. I'm going to drop a name, and you're known for being very, very viral.
Oh, God.
And saying whatever you want. And these names may inspire a little bit of that.
Okay.
Okay, so this person I think you're pretty close to, Donald Trump.
Okay. IBS.
What's that?
That is irritable bowel syndrome. When I think of him, I think of that. I think of all the commercials that you see where it's like, if you take this pill, it can cause flatulence, diarrhea, constipation, smelly gas, turning orange, all the things.
You called him Dr. Jesus?
I did call him Dr. Jesus. And Dr. Jesus was at it again because he was talking about doing all these bad things to Iran and all the things that he made happen. So, yes, fuck his ass.
You told him to go fuck himself. I'm sure he heard that.
Do you think?
Oh, absolutely.
Can he even hear anymore? He's been going to get all these MRIs and going to see his doctor at all times of the day and night.
You called him the thief in chief. I'm using that.
Okay. Thief in chief. I think that's right. He's earned $2 billion. He's stolen $2 billion since he's been in office.
So the East Wing is gone.
The East Wing is gone. It's rubble. And the West Wing stinks because they don't got no ventilation, and he's up in here with these McDonald's all the time. And we have heard that he's a gassy SOB.
What, farting?
Yes.
Congresswoman, stop talking to me. What you mean farting? If the president's walking around farting in the White House, oh, he does fart on the he's been farting on the press conferences too.
He has been, and supposedly when he went to Detroit and went to that, I think it was a Ford, or he went to some to tour some auto worker plant, they were complaining about him smelling. I'm just reporting news, child. I ain't getting up that close.
I can't. Where is the president of Venezuela? Have you seen him?
I have not seen him.
This is the kidnapper in charge.
This is the kidnapper in charge. You're right. But this whole situation right here is like, this is a RICO case. Okay, when I see him, I think RICO. I think all the scandals. I think all the corruption. He went over there, took that man, has captured their oil, and now, they are running game on that money.
Well, and on the way to get him, we're bombing boats in the middle of the water without giving people due process.
Fishermen.
Yeah.
Why are you blowing up the trout? I'm just asking a question.
Crazy. Okay, this next person.
And how come his wife don't want to touch him? Can we get into that? I've seen all these photos. So she's like, don't touch me.
The greatest gift to the world would be Melania Trump leaving him for a black man. I'm telling you right now, the way I would gag, I would have to leave public office because of the things I would want to say on this here good God-given show.
Yeah.
Melania walking down the street with Jamie Foxx.
Yes.
Baby.
Oh my God. The
Ray Charles
FCC, he would make them come after you.
Yes, he would. Okay, this next person, wonder if she's still in your iPod. Nicki Minaj.
Oh, no, she's not. So wasn't the rumor that she turned Republican because she was trying to get a pardon?
Yes.
For
her husband.
Yes, who maybe is allegedly
No, he ain't allegedly.
He's not allegedly.
No, he was convicted of things, and her brother is also convicted of the things.
Right. So have they gotten the pardon yet?
Well, she's not even she's an immigrant too.
Right.
So I don't know what they got.
They didn't get nothing. They might get a deportation slip.
What they don't realize is Trump will get rid of you when he's done.
He might get rid of you before he's done.
Yeah.
Because he might not be able to remember who you are because he might have dementia. Mm-hmm. He might be in cognitive decline. That's why I've asked for the 25th Amendment to be enacted.
So what's the first thing you think of when you think of Nicki Minaj?
Tired. Old, sad.
She does look a little tired there.
She looks desperate.
Okay, this next person, Don Lemon.
Okay, I think I am a lemon head.
Yeah, I'm a lemon head too.
Okay. I think he's sexy. I like when I see him on the red carpet and he with his boo. I do like his suits. I think about him going to Minneapolis to document what happened there after the ICE folks shot Alex Preddy and Renee Good, and how this administration actually used some old law that was actually used to protect people against the KKK, and they used a law to protect women who are seeking reproductive care. They used that law against him and Miss Fort, black journalists that were documenting the behavior of ICE. They used that law against these black journalists to incarcerate them and put them in jail.
But obviously, it's going to make more lemon heads find Don, and he's going to win. He'll beat that.
He's going to win. The mayor came and helped get him out of jail, and then he went to an award show, and I loved his fit. Yes, I think he's sexy.
Yeah. And I love that he's like Don Lemon Unleashed, because now that he has his own free independent media, he's killing it.
He is. I don't know if it's lemonade without the sugar or not, but I love it.
All right, this next person.
Okay. Ambitious queen. Unapologetic. This is Kamala Harris. The Democratic Party did not do right by this black woman. And we owe her an apology because we were not as courageous as she was. You know, she took this yeoman's job that she said, I'm going to do in like 100 and some odd days. And she stepped up. She raised, over $1 billion, and really did not get the respect. And we owe her. We owe her an apology.
Do you think she should have ran for governor?
You know, I think she should do what she wants to do. I think that once you have been the vice president and you've run to be president of the free world, I think we're still free. Do you want to be governor? You know, do you want to run for governor, or do you say, I think I had my pulse on this country. I didn't lose by that much. Like, let's not get it twisted. This dude did not win with a mandate. You know, let me stay engaged and figure out what else I want to do. I'm glad that she wrote a book and went on a tour and raised some money. And I'm glad that people are still talking about her.
Okay.
I like her suits.
This next person, Karen Bass.
Okay, Queen. BET Awards. So, persistent, resilient. Karen Bass is like the Energizer Bunny. You know, she's never lost an election.
Really?
Really.
But she's the real deal, though. I mean, you know, the LA fires was a lot. That was a lot. I mean,
she can't predict the fires.
She can't.
And she also ain't a firefighter.
Right.
She don't go out and put the hat on.
Right.
She does delegate.
Right.
And there were some changes that needed to be made.
Right.
And she made the changes. You know, some unfortunate timing for some of the stuff like the fires and the more fires. Reality is we have to have a real conversation about insurance and hardening and how a city like this continues to grow when you don't have, you know, like fire prevention infrastructure in place because you have a city that's starved. But I'm going to tell you something about Karen Bass. Karen Bass is an OG progressive. Karen Bass started a community coalition that was about bringing Black and Brown together to fight against disparities in the Black community. She was on the front lines trying to close down liquor stores when that was the only game in town in South LA. She was the one meeting with Castro and working to bring medicine to Cuba and building coalition between progressives here and there. She was on the short list to be the VP. And some people said, well, she probably couldn't do it because she was too progressive. So I don't sleep, Karen Bass.
And what I love is it's important to stay in control of our narratives, because I think, you know, as somebody who's a former foster kid, I went and spoke at the Hill with her for the
National Foster Youth Institute.
National Foster Youth Institute. I mean, all the work she did in the Congressional Black Caucus. She helped me get somebody out of prison who was wrongfully incarcerated for marijuana in Kansas City. So Karen's the real deal.
Kansas City.
He got arrested first time ever, sold a pound of marijuana in Kansas City, got 8 years in prison. So she had to work with me and the governor of Kansas City, Missouri, to get him out of prison. Yeah, so Karen did that.
Real deal.
Yeah. Okay, this next person, Charlie Kirk.
Well, now he's dead. And there's that. And, you know, we had a resolution, you know, to honor him. And I said no. I said no. And it was this whole thing about like, but not a good dude, you know, and really participating in fomenting hate. And discussion and dissent is one thing, but, you know, saying Black people are not qualified, that we don't have brain capacity, like, I don't support that, you know, and then people trying to lionize him and equate him to like, he's a 2026 version of Dr. King. I don't subscribe to that. I don't subscribe to that. Yeah. So I at least hope that, I mean, the question really is what's going to happen with Turning Point and who the lady going to give it all to. But I don't support this dude at all.
The Dr. King thing was kind of crazy.
It was more than kinda.
Yeah. Okay, this next person, Gavin Newsom.
This brother is hungry, and I love it. He is, you know, good on him. Gavin and I have a long relationship because I was in the Assembly and the Senate when he was governor. And, you know, I've talked to him, and he's like, hey, how else can I help CBC. We talked about that, right? Like, what can I do to support what y'all are doing with Voting Rights Act and help folks? He has raised money for some of our Black candidates, and he basically kind of turned Trump's tactics against Trump.
He did.
And he changed the game. And he showed a little backbone. And got a little spicy. So I'm not mad at him. He is hungry for something else, and I can respect that. He got some hustle in him.
Okay, this next person, we talked about her earlier. Jasmine.
Okay, she my boo. She loves my husband, by the way. Like in a good, Jasmine, in a good way. So she's always like, hey, I'm in LA. What are you guys doing? I'm like, I know you ain't trying to hang out with me, because my husband's a lawyer. She's a lawyer, so they like to talk about things. And, Jasmine is a queen and unapologetic. And isn't it refreshing to see a Black woman like Jasmine step into a space and just control it? And she's not back down. She got haters still coming after her. And she's like, I ain't got time for you fools. I love Jasmine. She's like a little sister. We hang out. There's a small group of Black women that hang out together in Congress. And it takes a lot of balls to try to run for a U.S. Senate seat. And she did it, and she did it her way. So I do tell her, though, there's some hair that I like better than others. And I be telling her, have you taken a poll with your people? Because can my hair come back? She's got the one bob. So she always be like, girl, what?
This shirt was when she was here. She wore the
Yes.
bleach blonde, bad built, butch body shirt,
yes.
which I thought was amazing.
Yes.
Now, will we ever see you on the campaign trail for Margaret Taylor? Was Taylor Greene?
We will not, no. We will not.
Isn't she a Democrat now?
I don't know what she is.
Because she was on The View.
I know.
She said, let me go over there with Whoopi and code switch real quick.
That's what I don't need no cosplay. Because you
are
who
did
you
all
are.
that. You disrespected Joe Biden to us. Like, you were the most despicable little trailer
Nasty.
trash.
Wasn't
ever.
she the one who had like pictures of him naked? And she had photos of that in the oversight committee. So I don't support that lady. Not my fault to
Well,
do
she
one
ain't got
after
no
you.
job now, so maybe she'll be over there on OnlyFans. Okay, let's go to this next person.
Ain't nobody paying for that account.
Not me.
Woo!
Nipsey Hussle.
Nipsey. Yes, king. So Nipsey, Marathon is in my district. Marathon Clothing is in my district.
Yes.
They had a big old unveiling and they renamed it. So 100% support Nipsey Hussle. I know that the city actually renamed a portion of my district, a Nipsey Hussle Way, and a ton of people came out. He is Eritrean. I represent an Ethiopian community, but I think when you're talking about Nipsey Hussle, you could just like cross-pollinate and have love always.
Have you met his brother Sam?
I have a meeting scheduled with him.
Okay, Sam is the real deal.
Okay.
I have not. I've been in the area with Sam, but like I lost my brother to gun violence. He lost his brother, and Nipsey and I were both Leos. He's somebody that I want to meet at some point.
Yes.
I mean, I'll talk to him at some point. I want to have him on my show, but he's dope.
We've asked to get a meeting together, so I will report back.
Okay. No, have you met Lauren London yet?
I have not
We
met
need to
Lauren
connect
London.
you with Lauren London.
Okay,
I'll
have
take
not.
responsibility. Okay, I'll do that. Love Lauren. Okay. Let me know if this next person's invited to the cookout. Candace Owens.
I mean, she's definitely asking around for an invitation, but I think we need a password on this one. Does she know the password?
Well, she came here and she was pregnant, and we were going back and forth on the trans rights issue, and she was, obviously saying her bit, and I said, well, what if your kid comes out gay? And she just could not wrap her mind around how God works. And I said, well,
In mysterious ways.
yeah, but what are your thoughts on her now? Because she's obviously trying to appeal to a different demographic now.
Well, I definitely think she's opportunistic. I think she's flowing with the tide. I think, first of all, Donald Trump is not a Republican. He's just a Trumpian, and he's out for himself. And I think people were riding his coattail. It was mutually parasitic, right? And then I do think there might have been either some breaking points, or then she realized that she was no longer invited to their cookout, and now she's searching for another cookout. And I think we have to be strong
to say we don't want
to
no
say,
raisins over
please,
here.
lady,
Don't bring no
that
raisins.
yes, wrong date, wrong time. Go over there. But I think she's, searching for a new tribe. She and Tucker Carlson and a few others. But once again, I think it's a question about your moral compass, your judgment, moral bankruptcy. I mean, this is a president who is morally bankrupt. And for people to subscribe to that for so long, go along to get along, I don't buy that. Like, I don't support that. So I hope she finds her people, but it's not with me.
Okay, and this last person.
Oh, well, that's me. That's me and my Nana, Thelma Lee Bruce. And this is a Black woman who actually taught me the value of travel. She and my granddad got divorced, but I would see these pictures of her like on camels and on cruises, and she visited as many countries as possible. And I was like, wow, you can do that if you're Black, if you're a woman, if you're single. And she was an amazing woman. I mean, she created my mother. My mother is my moral backbone. That's me with that wild hair.
And she got you involved with politics early too.
She did. So from Chicago, as I mentioned, and I was a real little person when Harold Washington was running for mayor, and she volunteered on his campaign, and she had me volunteer. And that was my first taste of politics. And I remember I was visiting my papa, my grandfather, in Michigan. We all went. It's crazy. These people got divorced and then they would still hang out with each other. And then we found out that Harold Washington died. And we had to get in the car and go back home for the funeral. And I remember she kept saying, ooh, I hope they didn't kill him. I hope they didn't kill him. And you're thinking this is a woman who lived through King's assassination and Malcolm X's assassination and the Kennedys. And so that, it was interesting. It was so visceral. And they didn't kill him. I think he died from a heart attack. But she was so excited about having a Black person be the mayor of the city. And so many of us were excited about Obama, being the president of this country. So many of us were excited about Kamala, the same thing. That's why it's so exciting, that you are vice mayor of Stockton. These milestones remain important.
But it's also exciting that a little girl from Chicago who was helping this guy become mayor becomes the U.S. Congresswoman of the 37th District.
Yes.
And we're just happy that you finally made it over here, and we're going to stay connected and support what you got going on. Me and you going to get on the phone with Hakeem too.
Okay.
But please give it up for the Congresswoman.